from monsters and ghosts to otherworldly beings. Join the Explorers as they venture into the darkest realms, seeking the truth to what goes bump in the night.
Good evening, and welcome to Explorers Seekers of the Truth, episode 22. Tonight, as always, I am Chad Charlesworth, and I am joined by my best friend and co-host, Les Sincavage. How are you doing tonight, buddy?
Good. I hope you're Chad Charlesworth, because it'd be pretty strange if you weren't.
Well,
as always, you are Chad Charlesworth. Well, I am doing fantastic. Thank you for asking, my friend. I'm super excited about tonight's topic. This is a topic that we've been kind of tossing around for a while now, trying to decide, do we want to do it? Do we not want to do it? Hey, Cleo, thanks for joining in, as always. But this is a pretty cool topic. But before we get into it, I got to go through my regular shtick. So let me bring that up. So we have the agenda. There's always ways for everyone to get in touch with us here at Explorers Seekers of the Truth. You could go to our website. That's www.explorersgroup.com. You can find us on Twitter at Explorers Group, or here on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Explorers Group. We're also on Instagram /Explorers Group. We're on iTunes. Check us out there. So now you could subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Take us with you wherever you go. And thank you again, Chad, for getting us set up with that. I got a confirmation from a friend of ours that they searched a topic and found us on iTunes. So I guess it just needed some time to kind of catch up to itself. So that's good.
Cool.
And we're also on YouTube. You could get to our YouTube channel if you go to the live shows page on our website. Click on any one of the shows and click the YouTube icon at the bottom of the video, and it'll take you right to our YouTube channel. So please go out there, subscribe, hit the notification for every time we put not just a new show, but also any kind of new evidence that we put out there. You'll be notified and you'll be able to go out and check that out, because the winter's kind of slow as far as doing investigations for us, unless we get a report that's, fresh that comes in and we need to go follow up on. Usually winters are kind of slow just because on the ghost side or the paranormal side, most places that are haunted don't have heating throughout the winter, so it's pretty tough to get into those places. But also on the crypto side too, with the cold, it's difficult to get out to certain places. But once it starts getting warm and things start looking, hey Bill, thanks for joining in, or Bob, sorry, Bob. Once it gets warm, we're going to be a lot more active, and we're going to be hopefully out in the field more. So like I said, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notifications, and anytime we put any kind of new evidence out there, you guys will be able to go on out there and check it out once you get your notification. So, yeah, that's probably it as far as that goes.
Are you done now?
I think so. That whole shtick gets longer and longer every week. You know what I mean? That whole where to find us.
Yeah, we keep adding places to contact us at. It's but yes, you guys and girls that watch the show, come back weekly, message us and stuff like that. It's great. It's the amount of support we've got has been overwhelming, and it's very encouraging. And it's I think Les and I would do this show if nobody watched, but we really enjoy the fact that you guys are engaging and supporting the show, and doing stuff like our King of the Cryptids tournament. It was just something we kind of put together for, let's just have fun with it. It's, the March Madness type of, time of year. And, I was just like, I'm throwing this up on the page, and, Les was, kind enough to create a PDF version that you could, do it at home or share it with your buddies and, play along with the game at home. So, I just like to thank you guys all for, commenting and posting and sharing us and stuff like that. And, if you see something on our YouTube channel, feel free to share it. I personally, the more you share it, the more people, you bring to our group, the more people we get to talk to. But also if you find it interesting, that kind of, shows that we're doing something right. If it's investigation stuff and you want to share it, feel free to share it, but there's that's why we put it out. Otherwise we wouldn't put it out there for you guys to share. Or even if you see something we're doing and you're like, hey, why are you guys doing it that way? Have you ever tried it this way? We're always looking at this as an educational process and learning stuff from other people in the field, and not just sitting here thinking, we have all the answers or we know what we're doing is perfect and stuff like that, because it's not. Trust me, we constantly look at each other while doing investigations and we're like, should we try to do this instead of this time? And we're like, let's try it.
Well, that's the whole part of investigating and experimenting, is you got to try new and again, we always try and stay as scientific as we can. We always try and figure out new ways to find evidence to prove the truth, and that's kind of our whole motto. But
I just want to add one thing.
Go for it.
There are people out there, and it's nobody that is watching now or that that is on here right now. But there are people out here that cannot understand the different time zones in our country. I'm speaking of the U.S. If you're on an Eastern Standard Time, you deduct 1 hour from the time it is where you are to the time zone behind you, and you deduct 1 hour going west until you hit the international date line. If you're going east, you add 1 hour of time to your time. Sorry, that's a pet peeve that there are people out here that, get online and like, I don't know what time it is in the central time zone. It's not that hard to figure out. So that was just my pet peeve for the week. We have an oddity of the week, and my pet peeve for the week just came out. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're calling me out, aren't you? Because I didn't know the time zone when we had Tom on the show.
No. I walked you through that. I explained the difference for you.
Yeah, well, usually you usually like to call out my idiocracy, so I just figured you were subtly calling me out on that. But
no, I understand. Like, you're not necessarily thinking of it, but like when you get on and make a statement where you go, it's 8:37 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I don't know what time that is in the Central Time Zone. It's very simple to figure out.
Oh boy. Well, Paul and Gary joined us. Thanks for joining, guys. Good to see you here. So we're going to get into it now that we kind of rambled on there. So we're going to go into the oddity of the week that we usually do. And there's been this thing that's been circulating around the internet. I'm sure everybody has seen it by now. It was, where was it? It was Minnesota, right? Where Wisconsin. It originated. What's that? Wisconsin. All right.
Milwaukee.
So there were these, it was a news channel's kind of time-lapse camera that they have on their building, and it oversees kind of part of the downtown of whatever city it was. And they saw these illuminated balls of light kind of just wisping through the air, and they had a little bit of a light trail behind them. And some people were trying to figure out were they like bits of meteorite or something falling, or maybe space debris that was, being pulled back down to Earth, through the gravitation. But when you watch it, it was very, very odd. And then the newscasters sent, I believe, one of their people down and to investigate, and they were saying that it was seagulls. And a lot of people were trying to dispute that because, when they filmed the seagulls on location, they were moving really quickly, and the live feed of the seagulls looked completely different than what you saw from the time-lapse cam from the news station. And excuse me, being in photography and videography and whatnot for the last 2 decades, one of the things that kind of caught me that caught my eye almost immediately was the fact that the cameras that they have mounted outside of their stations generally record at a slower speed or film rate. So when that camera is recording, is actually recording much slower than your standard news camera. When they're out, then the frame rate is much faster, so it's more real time. So those cameras are designed to more or less do a time lapse throughout the day to watch weather progression. So they were birds. They had a spotlight projecting from the ground up into the sky, so the light was reflecting off the belly of the birds. And the reason why they looked so illuminated and had that kind of wisping, trailing light behind them was simply because the camera recording them was recording at a much slower frame rate. So it looked like they were glowing because the each frame was being held on the subject a little bit longer than like the live action cams that they would use when they're out in the field doing, you know, their journalistic reports and whatnot. And so it did look very strange how they all kind of like went in their own directions. But if you watch the video and you look really closely, there's one bird kind of almost in the middle, but more towards the right. It kind of swoops down, it gets really, really bright, and then it goes back up, and you could almost see the wings flapping, like you could see the flapping. So I agree 100% that in fact it was the seagulls that they had filmed. They were illuminated, their undersides were illuminated from the lights projecting from the ground, and the reason why they looked so kind of slow and I had that trailing light is because the camera that was filming them had that slower frame rate. So long story short, in a nutshell, yes, it was seagulls.
I disagree. I disagree on the fact that they were not seagulls. They were actually just gulls. The seagulls and gulls. Yeah. I'm not disagreeing because Les, like Les has said, he has 20 years of photography. Anytime I see something that I'm like, Les, what is that? Explain it to me. Les looked at that video and he's like, it's seagulls, or birds in general. Yeah, they aren't actually seagulls though. They're just a type of gull that comes into that area from Canada. Yeah. Because seagulls would not be in Wisconsin. One or two here or there, but gulls themselves can migrate into that area throughout the winter months and stuff like that. So technically seagulls is not correct, but gulls is. So that's why I disagree.
Yes.
Yeah, birds nonetheless. I mean, they almost look like tumbler and roller pigeons, which I had when I was a kid. They're the type of, when they're flying, they'll start tumbling down and stuff like that. It's a defense mechanism for like when hawks are coming after them, they'll start tumbling like they're dying and fall. And then when the hawk kind of breaks off, they'll actually just start flying again. So they're the ones when you clap, they'll tumble and stuff.
Kind of like a fainting goat.
Yeah, but it's a bird.
When you spook them, they just stop, like in mid stride.
Yeah. I want fainting goats.
Huh?
I want fainting goats. I would just mess with them all the time.
Yeah, my old neighbor has 2 of them, and they're interesting.
So, what are we going to be talking about tonight, Les?
Well, the primary topic of tonight's story, let's get into that. So I'll start with a little intro story, if you will. So you've decided to retire to a nice dream home in the Caribbean. You decide that you'd like to have your own livestock to make life a little simpler. Late one evening, you hear a blood-curdling sound come from your goat pen. You rush out to see if you have a fox or some other animal preying on your goat. As you shine your flashlight around, you catch the sight of the most hideous creature. Thinking you are mistaking that of what you're seeing, you look again. You see a row of spines running down the neck to the tail, and the body the size of a small bear. You run back to the safety of your home. You try to rationalize what you think you saw. Could it really have been a chupacabra? Could the legend be true? The next morning, you find your prized goat drained of all of its blood. Dun, dun, dun.
That's right, folks. Tonight we're going to be talking about the old goat sucker himself. The Chupacabra, which literally means goat sucker, for chupra, to suck, and cabra, meaning goat, is a legendary creature in the folklore of parts of the Americas, with its first purported sighting reported in Puerto Rico. And the name comes from the animal's habit of attacking and drinking the blood of livestock, especially goats. I mean, that was, some of the original cases are goat related. That's where the name comes from. And it was actually coined by a stand-up comedian, was how the name actually came about. And to fully cover the subject, we will discuss the two different types of creatures that are reported under the name Chupacabra.
Right. There's two different descriptions given to the Chupacabra. The first one is what we're going to describe it. The first one was more the first one, I guess, originated in Puerto Rico and Latin America, where they describe it as that of like a reptile-like creature said to have leathery or scaly greenish gray skin and sharp spines or quills that run down its back. Said to be approximately 3 to 4 feet high and stands and hops in a fashion similar to that of a kangaroo. Actually, I'm going to bring a picture of that up quick. This is the more classic and or traditional chupacabra there. Hold on, I'll bring it up for you. So that's the goat sucker right there. So they say it hops around like a kangaroo, like I had said, and the body size is similar to that of a bear cub. And this variety is said to have a dog or panther-like nose and face, a forked tongue, and large fangs. It's said to hiss and screech when it's alarmed, and as well, it leaves behind a sulfuric stench, kind of squatchy in that aspect. But when it screeches, some reports assert that the Chupacabra's eyes glow an unusual red, which gives the witnesses nausea, which I'll tell you what, if I looked at that thing sucking on a goat, I think I'd get sick to my stomach myself. And some reports actually have that under the arms, there's kind of a fleshy membrane, like a bat, like skin, where it could. Some people say that they seen it that it could glide, but that's not one of the most common. This what you see there is what I consider the classic or original version of the Chupacabra, and I like that one the best, to be perfectly honest with you. We will talk about another one, and actually, Chad, we should probably mention we have a ton of notes, pages upon pages of notes that we have for this show tonight. If we decide to go through them all, we may turn this into a 2-part show. So we'll do half this night tonight, and then we'll do the other half next week. And we'll be talking about the other variant, which do you care if I say what it looks like at this point?
No.
The other version, the more modern, I guess, North American version, is that of a mangy, hairless canine or dog-like creature, which has absolutely no bearing to how the story originated with what we had just shown you before, which was the more alien vampire science experiment gone wrong kind of creature. So,
yeah. So we're gonna, the original story of the Chupacabra, or at the time where the name gets coined, we're gonna head to the Puerto Rican town of Canaveyas, and back to the year of 1995.
Good year. We were back in high school.
I was going to say, we were in high school. 8 sheep were discovered dead, each with 3 puncture wounds in the chest and completely drained of blood. A few months later, in August, an eyewitness, Madeline Tellentino, reported seeing the creature in the Puerto Rican town of Canaveyas, And this is what she had said. She saw the beast through a picture window outside of her home during the second week of August in 1995. In an interview in 1996, she had said that the animal was a bipedal animal, had dark gray or black eyes that were damp and protruding, running to its temples and spreading to the side, kind of like the typical alien eyes.
Like the grays.
Its height, yeah, like the grays. And she says its height was about 4 feet, maybe a little bit more, a little less. At the time, it was walking like a human on both legs. Its arms were drawn back in an attack posture as though it were a TV monster. It is, she said, it had 3 long, skinny fingers and arms that were also very long. Its hair was rather short and very close to the body, rather well combed, in fact, is how she put it. Now, as many as 150 animals and pets were reportedly killed around this time. And shortly after the first reported incident in Puerto Rico, other animal deaths were reported in other countries such as the Dominican Republic, Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, Brazil, United States, and Mexico. I was going to do that as Al Pacino, but I decided not to. My throat's going to hurt. Now, in that town in Puerto Rico, about 30 citizens claimed to have seen the Chupacabra, but it wasn't until around November 19th of 95 that a detailed description of the Chupacabra came from an eyewitness. And, it was on an autumn night in Puerto Rico. The creature, of course, strikes again. The farmer basically kind of woke up to the story that Les had, opened the show with, finding dozens of turkeys, rabbits, goats, cats, dogs, a horse, and a cow dead with no explainable cause, just the mysterious marks left, from the blood drinking. Now, I want to stop Les before he jumps in here. Does everybody remember the movie Species?
With that hot chick that turns into an alien?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comes out in like 94, 95. The description kind of sounds a little like the monster in that movie.
Pretty much.
Some similarities. So
that's interesting. That's a good correlation there. I never.
And a lot of
together.
Yeah, a lot of people try to use that as a plausible deniability for her eyewitness account. Yet her family, her husband, and several other members of her family were actually there with her when she witnessed it. And they all claimed at that point, never to have seen the movie. So there were several, not just her story is the one that is reported, but several family members were there when it happened and claimed to have also seen it. So the movie thing is kind of the plausible deniability for people trying to, get rid of the story or create a cover identity or a cover up for the story.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a little interesting, and I wanted to bring it up before we jump off that eyewitness account.
Yeah, no, like I said, that's a good correlation. I never thought about that. Yeah, because I could imagine how a lot of how a lot of movies could kind of incite that kind of hoaxing. You know what I mean? Where or maybe not an intentional hoax, but somebody sees the movie and then they see something weird and they just put 2 and 2 together and like, oh, it looked like that movie. Or people are just looking to, stir the pot and just kind of, hey, yeah, I saw that and it looked just like, and they saw the movie, so they just use that reference point. So interesting. I like that. But back to the story, we were talking about that report in 95 in Canovanas. In 1975, similar killings in the small town of Mocha were attributed to El Vampiro de Mocha, the vampire of Mocha. Initially, it was suspected that the killings were committed by a satanic cult. Later, more killings were reported around the island, and many farms reported loss of animal life. Each of the animals was reported to have its body bled dry through a series of small circular incisions, like we've been saying about the earlier report. And the Puerto Rican comedian and reporter, oh God, I'm going to butcher this name, Silverio Perez, is credited, and you mentioned that, right? That he coined the term Chupacabra soon after
I
the first
didn't.
incident.
I couldn't remember what his name was. I just remember it being a stand-up comedian that coined the term.
Right.
So, that's some of the early, like that 75 case. As we go through some of this information, you're going to see that the name Chupacabra gets coined in the 90s, but there are a lot of these similar cases that weren't, because the term Chupacabra wasn't around back then, weren't attributed to Chupacabra, but do fit the MO of what people claim the Chupacabra does. As we go through this, there's going to be some stories that predate the 95 story. So people are going to go, well, I thought you said it started at 95. The term comes from 1995's cases.
Yeah.
But the history doesn't start with 1995. A lot of similarities in the MO of these attacks will be, kind of demonstrated prior to that.
Right.
So there is a report that was done by Princeton University covering the Chupacabra phenomenon, and it breaks down some various reports and claims on the creature, as well as provides some. It actually provides a very good detailed timeline of the sightings and reported attacks. And anybody that kind of pays attention to the show knows I'm kind of a history nerd, so I like timelines and I like detail. So one of the things that does come up a lot with the 95 Chupacabra sightings and some of the other Chupacabra sightings are UFO sightings. Sightings of luminous ovals and pyramid-shaped UFOs have been reported, in the vicinities where these animals have been mutilated or found to be without blood. There have been reports in towns in Puerto Rico, basically Cabo Rojo. My Spanish is not good. My Portuguese would only get me slapped in the face. So, Canaveas, Ponce, Naranjito. Okay. Ours are, I don't know, distances apart, but there are these, similarities. And with a lot of these sightings, as this, story had spread across the island of Puerto Rico, people started to also see more and more UFOs and more stories of horses and goats started coming up, being found mutilated shortly after the observation of UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
So, on November 18th of 95, a luminous disc some 40 feet in diameter with a row of dark windows around its center rim positioned itself over the local radio station's radio tower. And simultaneously, the station's electronic equipment went crazy. Dials just went wild. And, they've basically ended up having to downgrade to a 1950s version of the station equipment to get the station back up and running. And actually, the piece of equipment turned itself on, according to their story. Now, of course, here's the it turned itself on, but they also claimed that the apparatus wasn't even plugged into any power source when it turned on. And this was brought up in their local media and discussed, as many residents in the area saw the UFO as it did hover over the station. Of course, TV, radio, and news media suppressed the information of several of these encounters. Some by residents next to the radio station. They cite a Channel 4, a WAPA TV, and a Channel 11 Tele 11 covered the incident, but failed to mention the president's. Yeah, I speak English. I really do, because like I said, my Spanish is not good, but the presence of a creature, during these sightings, and a lot of this is used as, it implies a cover up by the media. Mm-hmm. A female witness who observed the creature in Canaveas municipality early days of November said it jumped or flew and had the round luminous object, it kind of had a luminescence to it as it hovered above her cat. So
car, not her cat.
Car. Was it a car? Cat?
It's gonna be a long night. Well, what I find interesting about that, though, is the UFO correlation, because even though that device wasn't plugged in, that they said had powered itself, you get that a lot with UFOs, though, where electronic objects that are either inoperable, no batteries, not plugged in, they don't have their normal power source start working. Like a lot of times when UFOs are reported, kids' toys would start going across the floors that would, generally need some sort of a power source, and appliances, lights, things start turning on and off. So I'm not surprised at that they, they had that kind of an experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think doesn't that kind of play out in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when the stuff like the UFOs go over, the toys or something start going, the little toy robots and stuff.
Yep, and same with Fire in the Sky, how the truck, the radio, and everything started going when they were near the craft. So it makes sense. But again, it kind of goes back to the whole Species movie plot or correlation. Is, were they saying that because that's the common thing that you say with that kind of you know what I mean? It's so, everything becomes so subjective because you start to overanalyze, and I think we automatically make assumptions that it's a bunch of BS before anything, because we don't want to believe it. We want to write everything off, and as much as we want to find the truth, and we want to, and I'm saying just we in as people in general, we want to know the truth, we want answers, but yet every time anything is presented, it's automatically tossed to the wayside as just chalked up as bullshit, and that's that.
I mean, it's kind of one of those things where, if you believe too much of it, people look at you like you're crazy. Mm-hmm. It's almost safer to be like, I don't believe in any of it. Yeah, it can't be true because they tell me it's not.
Right.
So I think there's definitely, I'm always one of those big, my big thing is always follow the money when it comes to some of these stories and stuff like that. I mean, Puerto Rico's already a tourist destination.
Right.
Does it add a level of what I always say, like paratourism? Yeah, because if you start reporting chupacabras and UFOs and stuff like that, people are going to start venturing to those areas.
Right.
But it was 95. I mean, you think about it, in 95, that you didn't have the TV shows like you have nowadays. You didn't have you didn't have Facebook where people join a group like ours and join other groups and stuff like that and discuss this openly. It was something, like I said, you and I would probably do this show because this show is kind of a culmination of 20 some years of friendship and conversations that we've had alone in a room. Yeah. So, I mean, it was 95, so it's not really a kind of, to me, it doesn't really fit the whole follow the money thing because it's already a tourist destination.
Yeah.
So to me, it would almost be a deterrent or scare some people away from being a tourist. Nowadays, a lot of us openly go out to these places and spend money to go see or try to see these things. Back then, I don't think it was as, open or, it wasn't so lucrative. So I don't know, if you're getting 30, 40 people claiming they saw this, 30, 40 people could mistake what it is, but not completely. So, it's just a very strange. Actually, yes, Cleo, to your question. Me personally, there is a sound that they use in almost every UFO or like gigantic monster type movie. And they started, actually, it's in a few car commercials now, and it's a very specific tone. And it's almost like they're indoctrinating us to be used to that tone, or that tone to induce the knowledge that something like this is happening. So at times, yes, I do feel that they do use movies to kind of leak information, but you also got to think, these movies, a movie director hears a story about this, type of creature or cryptid or ghost, and then they write a story. They heard a little bit here, and then all of a sudden they write a story, and the story kind of fits the legend or the phenomenon or folklore without intentionally, having it as 100% concrete fact. But yes, I do believe in a lot of movies there's things that are leaked, and not even on the conspiracy level of anything, but sometimes I think it is a conditioning program used in certain movies to kind of get you. I mean, honestly, 90% of the paranormal television shows that are out there have a underlying binaural beat to it. It's a binaural beats. It's a low end frequency that actually induces fear in the human brain. So when you're seeing these shows like Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, and stuff like that, and they're coming up to that big moment, there's actually a low end frequency being played to make your brain become more fearful or paranoid, or kind of just get your adrenaline going. So yeah, there is some of that in these movies and TV shows. And I mean, you can actually look it up and find in a lot of horror movies. It's in this, like, I think it's like 17 hertz to 19 or 21 hertz or something like that, that is actually considered a fear-inducing tone and sound frequency. So yeah, I mean, it's done on television, so I wouldn't doubt that this kind of stuff is done in movies to kind of condition people and stuff like that. Sorry that I had to answer that.
No. And she actually posted another kind of question or statement there about the blood being drained from the animals' bodies, the victims of the Chupacabra. And a lot of the reports and information that I've read and watched about the Chupacabra is they actually dissected the carcasses medically. They had vets come in and basically do an animal autopsy, and that's how they had officially determined that the blood was drained, is the bodies had no blood in them. So they were being drained of their blood. And that's what makes this, that's what adds to the mystique of this creature, is how did it do it? And that's how it kind of got that vampire appending kind of reference. So
yeah.
Good questions though.
Yeah, no, like I said, that when I saw that, I had to answer, because that's one thing I constantly tell people. I'm like, if you actually listen for that sound, you hear it in almost every alien-based movie. Yeah, I am honestly, there's another comment up there that I just saw too. I believe most folklore, if not all folklore, has some basis in reality at some point in time. Not necessarily that it is, still true, but to me, all folklore started from a true story. It may have been embellished over the years or changed over the years, but yeah, I'm one of those people. I believe that almost all folklore has a basis in reality. So a lot of these stories come up as folklore, and I just feel that at some point in time, the stories, like I said, may have been embellished a little to make them a little more sensational, but they do have some basis in reality or in fact. Sorry, I'm just like reading all the comments now that I can see them.
I know. We're having an even better show just off of the viewer comments. Good.
Yeah, and
good,
that's why.
Good point there, Gary.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I like how you guys, that are watching the show kind of interact with us, because it is, you guys throw up stuff and it's like, oh yeah, that's an interesting point, or hey, I haven't thought of it that way before. And sometimes, we look at it from one point of view, our point of view. We don't have the same life experiences and education levels and stuff like that. So some people throw stuff up and I'm like, that's a super great point, and it is very valid to what we're talking about. So, you guys keep, throwing up comments, and, if we can, I will, just veer off on a diatribe about stuff. But yeah. So now we talked a little bit about the UFOs.
Yeah.
And, in this report, it suggests there's a link between what they consider ABEs and UFOs, or alien phenomena. Now, what they're using ABE for, not out-of-body experience, is what I instantly thought of when I saw it, but it's anomalous biological entities.
Well, that would have been OBE too. Out-of-body experience would have been OBE.
Yeah, but when I saw the ABs, that's what I thought of right away.
Yeah, just triggered. Yeah. I was going to say, did you say that earlier? Because I know ABE was mentioned in the UFO portion. I was like, ABE, because I was getting bombarded with text messages during that thing, and I was like, oh damn, did I miss a good part? So I don't know what's going to happen in this show.
Yeah. No, the ABs, like I said, is an anomalous biological entity. And instead of Chad trying to spit that out every time it comes up in my notes, I'm just going to say ABEs. So, let's just kind of go with that.
New acronym.
Yeah, honestly, like I said, as soon as I saw it, it threw me off, and I thought out-of-body experience. But, of course, like you pointed out, that would be an O.
Yeah.
And not an A. Yeah, no, it's fine.
All right, moving along.
Yeah.
So is it? Well, yeah, we're gonna get into it. I'm gonna let you go on to it before I ask this question. Go ahead. Continue your genetic manipulation.
Okay. Yeah, but we can't really discard the possibility that the ABEs aren't some kind of highly sophisticated genetic manipulation by, some human government agency. Mm-hmm. Or, there's a Chinese scientist, Dr. Yeah, my Chinese is also great too, folks.
Cian Cancian, I think. It's Tsian.
Let's call him Dr. K.
Yeah, there you go. Dr. TK. We'll do.
Yeah, Dr. TK.
Yeah.
Because like I said, honestly, there's not going to be a quiz at the end of this, so you don't need to know who he is. You can look him up, though. He is part of the report that Princeton did do. And he is, he's produced some genetic manipulations which have created new species of electronically crossed plants and animal organisms. Dr. K developed an electronic system where it picks up the bioenergy field of DNA of a living organism and can transfer it electrically to that of another living organism.
Wow.
By these means, he's created an incredible new way of breeding duck chickens with the physical characteristics of both species. He has created goat rabbits. I don't know what a goat rabbit would look like, but that kind of freaks me out.
Well, I mean, a goat rabbit would be probably a pretty hideous looking thing. So, I mean, think of the Chupacabra that hops around. You know what I mean? That could be. Yeah. But go ahead. I keep interrupting.
No, that's fine. And he's also created new variants of plants such as corn, wheat, peanut, sunflower seeds, and cucumber watermelons.
Interesting.
I think he just basically took some candles from some candle shop and figured out this smell and that smell goes together, so let me try to make them go together.
Here, Russ joined us. Hey, he says there goes the turducken. Yeah, what would we call the duck chicken? Would be a dickin? nothing like a nice dickin, right? No, not funny. Okay.
See, you didn't want to go with my Chinese interpreter story, so I'm not going to go with the dickin.
All right.
Okay,
back to it.
And these are produced by linking the genetic data of different living organisms contained in their bioenergies and basically high frequency manipulation. If the Russians have created this technology, then without a doubt, the US and other powers probably have it also.
Yeah.
Therefore, it is quite possible that the Chupacabra or other ABEs could have been developed by humans. So, it does offer, an interesting point of when does genetic manipulation become playing God?
Right.
And by creating these, basically, hybrids of creatures, could, something, a kangaroo, and something else be mixed to get the, Latin American version of the Chupacabra identity? And I'm not just saying a kangaroo, it could be many things, but, because they say it hops like a kangaroo.
Right.
So putting it in that realm, it does offer some kind of interesting points.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the original theories was the Chupacabra was like a military experiment that had escaped, or a military experiment that had gone wrong, and it got out to the public. So, I mean, they do a lot of these bio engineering experiments, if you will, a lot of times to try and produce something good, to try and figure out alternative ways to grow crops and become for sustainability purposes and whatnot.
Yeah.
But there's also the other, for every good, there's a bad, So I'm sure there's also other kind of more darker means of this experimentation. And a lot of it probably would have to do with biowarfare, diseases. They have that warheads that have different kind of diseases in it that they could detonate and, what do you want to call it? I guess they would when you give somebody a disease, what is that called? I'm totally drawing a blank here. Like when you drop a bomb and you would contaminate, I guess, all those people with that disease, So
Yeah.
I mean, aside from viruses and disease and whatnot, I'm sure there's some sort of kind of, and this might be a little hokey, but look at Jurassic Park or Jurassic World, where they wanted to use the raptors to basically be like a new foot soldier to send into caves after enemies and save human lives.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt that there's something like that going on.
Well, you got to think a lot of the stuff that we have nowadays comes from military technology. Cell phones and GPSs and stuff like that all have their root in, military tech, and then are released over the years to civilians and stuff like that.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely, with that kind of genetic manipulation, it goes back to that old, is it Spider-Man or whatever, with, great power comes great responsibility. Yeah.
And also, I mean, not that it hasn't already been attempted, because, I mean, we've talked before about the human-ape hybrid army that during the Stalin era, in Russia. So,
and yet we talked about it in Russia, but then a report came out that the U.S. In Florida was doing similar. Now, they weren't doing the head transplants and stuff like that,
right.
But they had an attempt at a breeding program. Allegedly, it was successful. They did end up terminating the human monkey hybrid
creation.
Yeah. And you got to think, like, Puerto Rico has been a site of a lot of experimentation by the U.S. government. The U.S. government has military bases there and stuff like that, and it is I guess they're not technically a protectorate of ours. I mean, technically they're citizens, but they're not a state. Anybody want to help me out with that one? I don't know what they would actually be.
Or something like that.
Well, usually, like, you have like America Samoa, which is a U.S. protectorate, which means we protect that island and those people. I don't know if Puerto Rico is a protectorate or not, or how that works. That would be something.
They're born with citizenship, though, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, but they're not a state. So I guess, well, maybe it's a federal district. I'm not sure on that. I'd actually have to look that up. But the island's population and the territory has been, site of experiments by our government and stuff like that. One example is the fact that we used an experimentation, point would be the use of anti-contraceptive drugs on the women, which actually caused many birth defects and malformed children in the 50s. And I think that was actually like part of the thalidomide experiments, where children were coming out with like flippers instead of hands and stuff like that. Agent Orange and stuff like that was tested on the island in several places, as well as the Incredible Hulk stuff, the gamma radiation test in the forest.
I'd love to have to be able to Hulk out. Now I just bulk out. I mean, that's not the way I wanted to expand.
And because of that, we can't really exclude the possibility, that some of this may well be experiments with new and advanced genetics, in the Puerto Rican islands and stuff like that. And the ABEs could be a result, basically it's the old like Frankenstein's monster. It goes awry, and now you have this thing that is loose on an island, and the average person on the island has no clue what it is. And the people who know what it is have to try to cover, it's a rhesus monkey. Because rhesus monkeys, were not native to Puerto Rico, but were brought in as, for this, some of the experimentation that was done. They brought rhesus monkeys in, they escaped,
right,
and now are, an invasive species on the island. So it's quite possible that this creature has escaped, and that someone has, basically the creator or the government agency has lost control of the situation, and now it is roaming, freely on the island. Now, one of the things is they did obtain some blood samples, allegedly from this creature. When it was basically, it tried to jump over a fence at some point, and it actually tripped. This occurred. I'm going to give you the whole police report version of this. This occurred at 9 p.m. on 3 October 1995 in Campo Rico in Canaveas. 2 days before, a policeman shot one of these creatures in Campo Rico, which fled the site. The blood could have well been from the ABE. We proceeded to take the sample to a medical specialist, and hopefully they could get a DNA analysis on it. These tests are currently underway in the U.S., and now this is, of course, reporting from a story back in 95, but there are preliminary results. The first sample, the original blood, seemed to indicate similar characteristics to that of a human A-type blood with Rh factors. Further analyzation of this, blood, the first sample was not conclusive. So now you get to sample 2, another sample of the blood, and matter being parts and stuff like that associated to the sample. Showed material contained a content comparable to feces with E. coli bacteria, worms, and other parasites. Vegetable cellular material was also found. The content was comparable with that found in cases involving an injured animal or human with open wounds in the intestines, through which the blood is hemorrhaging, which was an issue, would be the issue there. Now, the third sample, the genetic analysis so far has revealed that the blood is in no way compatible with human blood, nor with any animal species known to science. The trace ratios of magnesium, phosphorus, calcium, and potassium are incompatible with those of a normal human blood. They are much too high. Sorry, I'm trying to read through this as I go here. It's a very sciencey, wordy thing. So that blood is incompatible with a human. That's kind of a weird, your third sample is showing all these amounts that are not compatible with human blood. So, at present, we can't place the sample with any earthly organism. Therefore, it could be, again, a product of, this highly sophisticated genetic manipulation, an organism alien to our own environment, or perhaps extraterrestrial.
Mm-hmm.
Other preliminary tests of the subtypes and genetic analysis are yet inconclusive, but the results so far imply these samples originated from an unknown organism. So, just going back on that, right? Blood sample 1 has pretty much similar characteristics to humans.
Right.
With A-type blood and an Rh factor, okay? Sample 2 of blood and matter is showing material comparable to feces.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so their thing on the second sample would be similar to, a human or an animal that has an open wound in the intestines.
Mm-hmm.
So if you shoot something, it has an open wound. If you shoot it, gut shot it, basically. So now you have a gut shot that is hemorrhaging blood and stuff like that. So you're going to have the feces and stuff like that. Okay, so 1 is human, 2 is similar to human, and 3 is nowhere near human.
Right.
So it kind of, I don't know if samples 1 and 2, to me, it almost sounds like they accidentally shot a human with sample 1 and 2. Sample 3 is something that is not a known earthly organism.
Mm-hmm.
I think they may have accidentally shot somebody.
Yeah, really.
You remember the scene in Jaws, the kids with the fin
mm-hmm.
on their swim. They swim up in the fin in the water, and they end up popping out of the water. And the one kid says, "He made me do it," as they're pointing guns at him.
Yeah.
Oh, come on! Please tell me you got a Jaws reference.
Yes.
Okay, you just kind of sat there and looked at me like I was talking crazy. That's I do that most of the time. But the first 2 samples kind of make me think they may have accidentally shot somebody.
Yeah.
The third sample, that kind of raises the question of, is this a genetic manipulation? Is this some alien species? Or is this something that we truly do not, is it encrypted? Is it, something we just don't know about yet?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there is the disinformation and concealment, which a lot of times you find with the obvious potential of aliens and stuff like that. There's always what they consider disinformation officers out there.
Right.
And the alien potential would be very difficult for the U.S. and the Puerto Rican authorities to explain, and has led to a somewhat of a disinformation program.
Right.
Through which, government agencies are disseminating the already discredited official explanation of feral dogs, baboons, apes, and other exotic animals. Or, of course, the classic satanic cult.
Yeah. When you run out of options, it's always a good fallback. Hey, it was a satanic cult. All right, let's just leave it at that.
Well, and again, that does kind of lend to the Latin American. There's a lot of Latin American Catholics. They're very Catholic, oriented. So it's very easy to blame satanic cults. Especially in areas. Well, no, Santeria is kind of a mix of Christian, some Christian mythology, voodoo, and stuff like that. So you just blame, if a large portion of your people in an area are Catholic, you blame the devil.
Right.
Or people who are worshiping the devil. Because right away that does kind of cover, the majority of people's interest. Like, oh, now we got to be on the lookout. It's like when we were kids, you always heard on, Friday the 13th, be on the lookout for, this stuff going on. Because my family owned a security company, and Nativity High School, which is in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, sits up on a hill, and there's a radio station transmitter right next to it. Nativity used to contract our security company every Friday the 13th, Halloween, and like one other day a year to basically patrol on those nights on their school grounds because of the fear of satanic cults. They used to legit pay us money to take care of that, and that to watch their property because of the fear of satanic cults. So this, and this kind of stuff has been, kind of strengthened by media jokers who have sensationalized or made light of the situation. In many instances, ridicule has been used as a weapon, against more serious witnesses. And of course that's, other, disinformation and debunking campaigns, appear to organize through UFO groups, by the U.S. intelligence service. This is one of the big things when you listen to some of the more prevalent UFO speakers. You'll hear a lot about the U.S. intelligence services being actively involved in creating disinformation, campaigns. And, basically people have been outed in those groups over the years as working for the government and creating, supposedly leaking information and stuff like that. And the information that is leaked is, kind of used to sway or change people's views on a sighting and stuff like that.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, they're always going to keep things under wrap, and they're going to kind of give you just like what they want you to hear or want you to believe, this situation is. Yeah.
And you also got to think like a lot of, serious investigators, they can't really step out and start hunting, the Chupacabra in Puerto Rico or, other, cryptids throughout the world, because that affects their credibility with their peers. And, look at Bigfoot. There's very few PhD level Bigfoot researchers. There are a few, but their credibility over the years has been, affected by stepping out and saying, hey, I went out and looked for Bigfoot. I, was at this site where they said they saw this. I saw footprints, and I do kind of believe that this is an organic creature that we just haven't discovered yet. And their credibility, takes a downturn. For the rest of their career, they publish a paper and it's, oh, that's the crazy Bigfoot guy. That's, Dr. So-and-so. He kind of went off the deep end for a few years because he started to chase Bigfoot or chase ghosts and stuff like that.
Right. So they want to more or less excommunicate him from the scientific, community, and like you said, use the ridicule tactics and more or less shame him into being an idiot.
Yeah.
Or he or she.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's been at least two groups of disinformation campaigns through the media in Puerto Rico, spreading the panic as they tell of how the Chupacabra, or ABE, belongs to an alien race who created the AIDS virus to destroy the human race. Another body, spread fear by explaining that the Chupacabras belong to a voracious reptilian race of creatures, alien origin, who have, started to devour the populace and for that part, we have, they kind of denounce that intent that people have to research or to, keep questioning why people aren't believing them. You got to think it's pretty messed up that, they take something like the AIDS virus or they take something like that or, HIV basically, and they use that as, again, that's a very Catholic country, and HIV and stuff like that was always, when it was originally discovered in, when it basically made the jump to the States and into Europe, it was called GRID.
Mm-hmm.
It was, gay-related immune deficiency. That's what GRID stood for, and that's what HIV, is and stuff like that. So again, you're using the devil, immoral things and things, like HIV and stuff like that to destroy the human race and stuff like that. You're playing on their sensibilities and their morality.
Mm-hmm.
And, they start, if they keep pushing the issue, all of a sudden their friends look at them differently. The church looks at them differently. So they start to become that outcast of their society.
Right.
And a lot of this, some of these stories, are related to the intelligence community, and kind of some part of the intelligence community intends to create a panic. And, at the same time, someone else, for, some unknown reason, is trying to prevent alarm with the situation from reaching serious parts of the media, the mainstream U.S. media, basically.
Right.
And, you do have a lot of bogus UFO reports and investigation groups that were kind of created in Puerto Rico to disinform or, intoxicate the media with these ridiculous stories. And, also, crews from U.S. TV shows like Inside Edition, visited Puerto Rico to report on chupacabras. But it was obvious, to everyone that was there from Inside Edition that they were telling, they were being told these ridiculous, stories. One witness, says this, and the mayor of the one town actually got into a serious argument with one of the producers of the show, who, the producer tried to kind of ridicule him while doing a pre-interview. Mm-hmm. And here this guy is a mayor of a town, and he kind of stood up for himself and, kind of fought back a little bit. And basically the way it kind of seemed like the show was being run was it was apparently done with the intent to discredit the situation and ridicule the local people. So it does definitely, there is that in the community, to kind of create these situations that, make people look bad and make fun of the situation. And nowadays it's a little bit harder to do with things like Facebook and Twitter and, podcasting and stuff like that. There's definitely a more open and free place for dialogue on these subjects. Mm-hmm. But even so, there definitely still is some kind of disinformation, be it unknowingly. It's like when people share those things and don't fact check what they're sharing, mm-hmm. and all of a sudden it starts spreading around the country. Bigfoot body found on Oregon riverbed after flooding, mm-hmm. and that went around the world. There's no truth to it. Anybody who read the story and actually looked up the information would be like, my friend who shared this is an idiot. I accidentally shared it with less folks. This was way before I got into all the Bigfoot stuff. And I sent it to Les like, hey, dude, did you see this? And he's like, dude, you're an idiot. That's fake. But, so there definitely still is an element. Like I said, if it's unwittingly sharing it, if it's creating things to dramatize situations and then people share it because it is such a good story, or it comes from a web page that is reputable, or a Facebook group that has a good level. It doesn't take somebody that long to create something like that, share it. 10 people that don't know any better share it, and then 10 of their friends that don't know any better share it, and soon you've shared it to 100,000 people, and the people who are looking at it from a rational sense are looking at you like, yeah, that makes absolutely no sense what that story says, and that's why I don't believe anything you tell me anymore. And other people just keep sharing it, and that information keeps going out there, and it does create ridicule and disinformation about a subject.
Right.
And this isn't these stories in Puerto Rico. It's not the first occasion of a particular program affecting the credibility of a study or something like that. There's reports in the 90s in Alabama of UFO sightings, and a TV program grossly ridiculed the witnesses and some of the cases. And this should be an alert to investigators in the U.S. that the events in Puerto Rico may provide good enough reason for the discussion like we're having tonight. Kind of sometimes you got to keep some of the stuff hidden from the general public, and kind of talk with some other researchers who you trust and who aren't going to take your finds or your evidence. You see a lot of people now when they share stuff on Facebook, they write their name in the picture somewhere, or add their watermark so it doesn't get shared around and credit go to somebody else, or used in a way to create a disinformation experience for people.
Right.
And that is one of the things with a lot of research. We look at certain programs and we say, oh, they're cutting edge in a research field. But those shows could easily be used to mislead and disinformationalize the general public, even though they're done under the guise of, oh, we are investigating this or that, and we're going to give you all the information. Well, those shows could be used in the same manner. Oh my God, are we doing a disinformation show? Is that what our show is? Am I part of some government conspiracy to disinform the general public?
I don't think so.
I hope not. Because I think we should be, definitely compensated if that's what we're doing, and we're not. So, this, disinformation campaigns always, and that kind of thought process always falls under conspiracy theory and stuff like that. So, like I said, it could be done unknowingly. Like we talked about, like with our paranormal tech episode. Sometimes you're given equipment and you're told this is how it works and this is what it will read and what it does and this, that, and the other thing. And when you ask a question about a specific feature on it, they always have an answer.
Right.
So you could have a piece of equipment that is GPSing your location, accessing the internet, pulling up, what is known about that location and giving you responses that fit that location. So you go on television with that piece of equipment and you're like, oh, this is the best thing we've used so far. It's getting so many great answers and da 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 da. And you're unknowingly participating in disinformation.
Right.
Yeah. So you want to take that next part there about Graham Shepard? You want to talk about him a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. That's that I guess it was a sighting report, right? That one?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Graham Shepard, an experienced airplane pilot and close associate of author Timothy Good, spent several days in January on the island to investigate the Chupacabra and UFO sightings. His research has concluded sightings are occurring both during the day and at night. So the media interest is now more serious than at any other time, and one newspaper based in Miami has held talks with local police. Shepard further learned that the armed police patrols are now looking for the Chupacabra. So they're looking for it. You have the police looking for it. So the involvement's getting pretty heavy. The investigator had obtained other interesting data about the creature as well. The creature appears to be some form of reptile or insect hybrid. And again, going back to those tests that we were talking about with the bioengineering.
Mm-hmm.
And officials are now ruling out the officials are ruling out the possibility that it may well be some type of dinosaur, which I shouldn't laugh, because there actually have been a lot of reports of living dinosaurs coming from South America and other Latin America countries, primarily more along the lines of the Comptosaurus or the like Velociraptor style or Gallimimus, kind of the smaller. Yeah. Where was I? Totally lost track there. Okay, possibly unknown to man. So plaster casts of its footprints have been made and reveal 3 claws, approximately the same size as a large dog. There have been more attacks on dogs, including a Great Dane, interestingly enough, and rabbits. These occurred some 20 miles north of Cabo Roco and Maya Guez, whatever Spanish town that is. Shepard also notes that the reports of UFOs and the creatures are appearing daily in the local press. The authorities are in a jam, he commented. U.S. researcher and television producer Linda Moulton Howe is now on the island investigating many of the reports. Meanwhile, Graham hopes to uncover more information from locals and officials on the island. And that's what's going on down there.
And the funny thing is, depending on who you talk to, Linda Moulton Howe is neither one of the foremost honest, trustworthy reporters and investigators of these type of phenomena, or she is a government disinformation campaign officer. It just, she has, anybody that's ever listened to Coast for a long periods of time probably have heard her, talk to George Norrie, or even back to the Art Bell days, has definitely heard her name thrown around before. She did actually live outside of Philadelphia at one point. I don't know if she still does. I know she does do a lot of the traveling and stuff like that to these different hotbeds and sites of phenomena, and has written books and prepares lectures and does conferences. But again, it's one of those ones where, depending on which side of the aisle you fall on certain parts of the UFO and different cryptid stuff, she's neither the best researcher and journalist out there for these cases, or she is some kind of government disinformation officer. So
you never know.
Yeah, it's just, like I said, it just, whatever side of that situation you fall on is how you view that specific person. And even though, to me, a lot of the stuff I've heard her speak on over the years has been somewhat factual and or at least researched out to a decent level to, and to have her come, on these shows and speak about it too. And actually, yeah, that's, I just saw a note, comment from Cleo, with like the dinosaur stuff. If you think about it, places in like Arizona and Texas are hotbed, areas for chupacabra sightings, but they're also involved in some way, shape, or form in a lot of these living dinosaur sightings.
True.
So that's interesting. So, like I said earlier, kind of give you guys an idea of the timeline on
Wait, before you
these.
go into that, there were some questions that were posted during our initial start of the Princeton report that I kind of want to touch base on. And Gary had asked the question: could there be chupacabra in PA? He doesn't know that he does know that there's some sort of ghost demon. At least that's what it looked like to him, and it had the luminescent eyes. Um, I haven't found any reports of a chupacabra this far north into the United States, into Pennsylvania. However, and it's funny that you said about the ghost demon. Is I remember back when I was a teenager, one of my friends said that one of her family members had seen something. They were out driving. It was late at night. It was an old back road. They came around a turn, and she had said that there was this small creature on the side of the road, and it was kind of behind a deer carcass, and it was eating the deer carcass. And when the headlights came around, the creature looked up from its meal and stared at the car and kind of like snarled, like bared its teeth. But she said that what this person had said was the eye sockets were pure black, almost like they could look through the eyes, almost like there weren't any eyes at all, or they were just ghost black. They said that the closest thing that they could compare it to was a gargoyle, which if you look at, and I'll bring up another picture of the Chup. This looks very much like a little gargoyle. I mean, they're not that tall, 3 to 4 feet tall, which is basically the same specs that she had told me about in this story that her family member had seen. So is it a chupacabra or some other kind of unknown reptilian-like creature? I don't know. But it's kind of funny that you said about a ghost demon, and she had told me about like this gargoyle-y demon-looking thing. And it does kind of fit the chupacabra description if you think about it. One of the other things Bob had mentioned about it's weird that they're always found in Puerto Rico and the other Spanish-speaking countries and Texas. Yeah, it is kind of weird that it would be just kind of down in that area. But again, like I said, a lot of the original reports that I had read, not just recently, but years ago when I first started learning about the chupacabra, is that it was some kind of like a Mexican military experiment that had escaped. So I would imagine that the reason why most of the reports were down in that area is because it supposedly originated from some sort of an experiment gone wrong down in Mexico. So
That's interesting.
that's probably why most of the reports started from down there. And yeah, like I said, I just wanted to make sure that we touch base on those questions. So, you know. Oh, and hello to all the new people commenting and visiting the show. Welcome. Thanks for stopping by and tuning in. So now that I kind of diverted there, but like I said, I wanted to make sure we answered those questions or at least acknowledged the comments. Part of this Princeton report is there's a timeline, and it's a pretty long timeline. It starts, I just scrolled right past it, in the mid 70s, and it goes all the way up to, if I could go all the way, it's long, 96. So, do you want to touch base on some of the more? I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here, and I don't know if we necessarily need to read everything, but
No. If you are interested, you can find all this information on the Prince. If you type in Chupacabra in Google, you'll see a link. I don't know if Les has the link on the agenda
I'm
or
trying to.
not.
No, I'm trying to get it now. I didn't have it
Okay.
in there.
Yeah, there is a link on there that you can go to this information. But like I had said, the term chupacabra gets coined in the 90s, in 95. But there are stories, and this is where it's interesting also. This story happens in the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas in the mid 1970s. And this sighting may have been a condor, but it was linked to a rash of cattle mutilations. And again, it was blood removed, drained of blood, these cattle. Then in the early 70s, early to mid 70s in Brownsville, Texas, a rancher finds a bull dead, no blood around it, and no tracks. So these kind of start to go towards the, is this something that has been around a little bit longer than, we're giving it credit for? Is it something, is it an ABE? Is it an extraterrestrial? Because then in 94 in Puerto Rico, there were 4 to 6 little grays found under a bed and chased out of a house with a broom. I don't know how true that is, but again, you have a lot of UFO sightings, and then you have chupacabra sightings. So a lot of things are described. The eyes are described kind of like Gray's eyes are. The fingers, the stuff like that, kind of does lean towards some of the stories of Grays or what they say about Grays.
Mm-hmm. There's an interesting one here on Sunday, November 19th in 95 in Puerto Rico. The Chupas is blamed in the death of dozens of turkeys, rabbits, goats, cats, dogs, and even horses and cows, like you had said earlier, Chad. But it's said to have ripped open the bedroom window of a house in the north central city of Caguas. I'm horrible. It destroyed a stuffed teddy bear and left a puddle of slime and a piece of rancid white meat on the windowsill. It had hairy arms and huge red eyes. In another attack, it came at about 7 a.m. and it showed up and poof, it vanished. So that adds yet another level of mystique or mysticism to this creature, that it's capable of vanishing, or maybe it has like again from the movie to a correlation to movies, Predator, how it had that ability to cloak. It didn't necessarily disappear. It just was able to manipulate the environment to create the illusion that it had disappeared.
Yeah, it reflected or bent the light around itself, so it appeared not to be there. It was a form of camouflage.
Right. So you could go to another one. I just wanted to point that one out because I thought that one was really cool. Like we said, this list, there's tons of stuff on it, and I mean we could go through the whole thing, but it'd take a lot.
Well, here's another one. November 19th of 95. Residents saw it one afternoon in his backyard when it came out of the bushes and bit the family dog. I think it belongs to the monkey family, but it isn't a monkey exactly, he said. It ran like a monkey and was about 4 foot tall, but it didn't have a tail.
And that was 35 times in 3 months span.
Yeah, that he actually witnessed this.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, though, it could have been a mangy monkey that lost its tail in either a fight or some sort of an accident,
Yeah.
And monkeys are notorious for biting.
Yeah.
You know, especially because especially the rhesus monkey, they're horribly territorial. So I can imagine if a dog got close, it's it's mangy, it's possibly injured. It could very well have just been irritable, and the dog got too close, and it just came out and attacked, or it could have been rabid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, what's one thing that we constantly experiment on also?
What?
Monkeys.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, we
Us,
constantly
not us specifically.
not us, not you and I directly, but
Yeah, that's what I was
humankind.
thinking. I was like, what do we experiment on? I was like,
No, but I mean, we use, we
I'm
do a lot
tired.
of, yeah, we do a lot of experiments on monkeys. So, it is an island where we have done some testing over the years and stuff like that with different, chemicals and stuff like that. And,
Mm-hmm.
they did bring in Reese's monkeys to, do lab work on. So if they brought in one type of monkey, let's say they didn't bring in other types.
Right.
Reese's, we only know about Reese's monkeys because they escaped. It wasn't like a known thing on the island, like, oh, they're bringing Reese's monkeys here. No, it was, yeah, a couple of them escaped and started breeding. So now we have an invasive species that we got to tell people to be on the lookout for.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Now, December 14th, on the east coast of Puerto Rico, several caged rabbits were found dead with holes in the neck area without a drop of blood, spilled anywhere on the ground. Other rabbits had disappeared. Near the rabbit cage was a track with a three-toed claw. So that's kind of interesting. That's one of the things, like a lot of the Chupacabra report of the draining of blood or the animal being found bloodless, is there's not traces of blood on the ground around them. They're finding them drained of blood, and it's not like, oh, they were bled out and the blood is laying here. The blood is gone.
Right.
And the animal doesn't have blood. There's not a drop of blood spilled on the ground. So it's almost in that like vampire, realm of things where they drink, or find nourishment in blood.
Right. Right. Bob Hill has a good point. The Loy's ape, which had a lot of, I guess, speculation around it when it was first, I guess, identified as a species. It's a really strange looking ape from South America. I posted a link in the comments section, and again, I called you Rob in my comment. I'm just butchering this guy's name, so I apologize in advance. But I put a link, a Wikipedia link, where you could kind of see what that ape looks like. It is creepy as all get out. So check that out. That's a good call too, and especially one of those with mange would look really messed up. What other ones? What one did you just do?
Let's see here. The December 14th, on the east coast of Puerto Rico. I'm sorry, I had to go look up that ape also.
Yeah,
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah.
December 15th in 95, Puerto Rico. In 1 year, it's thought responsible for at least 1,000 killings of goats, sheep, of livestock. There are many eyewitness accounts. The creature's 4 to 6 feet tall. Well, now it's even getting bigger. Walks upright. It's not humanoid. Has large, oval, alien-type eyes. Animals died as a result of a single puncture mark found in part of the body, which apparently drained them of blood. One photo shows Siamese cat with a puncture mark through its skull. Interesting. Let's see.
Go to the December 18th of 95. Local tabloid echoes the possibility that a giant vampire bat
has infiltrated the island in cargo shipments proceeding from South America. Normal-sized bats are fairly common in the Caribbean. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And December 21st, 3 a.m. near, somewhere in Puerto Rico, 44-year-old Osvaldo Claudio Rosado was washing a car. He was grabbed from behind. He tried to fight off the intruder and saw a black-haired gorilla about 5 feet tall, which ran off. Rosado had cuts in his abdomen, possibly torn by fingernails or claws.
Question: why is the dude washing his car at 3 a.m.?
I don't know. I could just picture a dude being accosted by somebody from behind by somebody in the gorilla. I don't know. I found that very funny. And here's another one. Thursday, December 21st, 1995, in Klamath Falls, pregnant heifer died with her right ear gone, hide cut from her face, and tongue cut lengthwise along the top of the teeth. All 4 teats were removed, leaving black circles on the surface of the udder and the rectum, and the vagina was cut out in a neat keyhole cut. No blood at any of the excisions or on the ground.
Rectum hella killed him.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Michigan. 94, Isabel County, Michigan. 8 calves frozen and dead. 2 were skinned from their hide from the heads to the hooves. 6 were skinned of all their hide from neck and hooves. All were black and white Holsteins and about a week old. That was in 1996. Klamath Falls, Oregon. 1 week old calf dead and mutilated. Right ear had been cut off and the entire skull had been removed. Well, that's a little bit more than just the puncture marks and drained of blood. That's a little bit beyond the typical. That almost sounds more like extraterrestrial cattle mutilations. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's where like the UFO Chupacabra things start kind of crossing over on things and crossing back, and
no pun intended, that gray area.
That little gray area?
Yeah.
With 3 fingers?
Yeah. A hell of a bowler.
And then you get into, again, Miami, in a rural area of Miami in March of 96. 40 animals are killed, and one woman saw a dog-like figure standing up with 2 short hands in the air.
It makes me wonder if the Chupacabra, like, its primary mode of locomotion is quadruped, but it, like, when it takes off running, it would run on all 4s, but it would, like if it were walking around or just kind of investigating its surroundings, it would be bipedal.
Well, I actually saw a bad sci-fi B movie about like Bigfoot, Sasquatch type creatures, and when it was chasing somebody, it would actually run on all 4s. But the rest of the time, when it was just walking around, it would walk upright on 2 legs. But it still would go back to all 4s to like run, and then it would jump from all 4s. Like I said, it was a bad B, sci-fi type movie.
Yeah.
But it was, kind of along those lines of, different forms of locomotion at different times for different reasons. And now in 96, again, Grand Valley in South Texas, a pet goat dead with 3 puncture wounds in its neck. And of course, it was found with the 3 puncture wounds, which is the telltale sign of the Chupacabra blood draining.
Yeah. Looks like, for the most part, most of the attacks are on animals. Now, you get down to Where did I just saw it? Okay, May 9th of 1996, between 5 and 5:30 a.m. around dawn, a 7-year-old boy in the same house. Oh, I was guess that's the preceding part. Okay, so I'll say the previous one, and it kind of runs together, I guess. The Espinoza family, May 9th, 96, 2 a.m. A front door was open, and a creature was seen 3 to 4 feet high with scaly skin, clawed hands, red eyes, and a row of spines from the skull cap and down the back. The creature mumbled and gestured. May 9th, 96, between 5 and 5:30 a.m., around dawn. 7-year-old boy in the same house said the creature stood on his bed and briefly on his chest. Both the older and younger Espinoza family members described a smell like a wet dog, but none of them were attacked. There was a report that I read where a man had walked in, heard a commotion, walked into his infant child's room, and they found a chupacabra kind of crouched on the side of the crib, looking down over the child, but they scared it out the window when they opened the door, so it didn't hurt the child. And like we said, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of encounters. I posted the link in the comments if you guys want to go check it out. What time is it now? It's 10:15. Do you think we could crank out the last bit of the other variant? I mean, we have some. We could kind of shorten it up, and we could keep the show within 2 hours.
Yeah, I think we could probably hit the second part of this. So right. The second variant of the Chupacabra, the more common North American and European description, is of the Chupacabra as a strange breed of wild dog. This form is mostly reported as hairless with a pronounced spinal ridge, usually pronounced eye sockets, fangs, and claws. Unlike conventional predators, the Chupacabra is said to drain all the blood of animals and sometimes organs, usually through 3 holes in the shape of a downward pointed triangle, or through 1 or 2 holes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on July 23rd, 2008, actually, Monster Quest aired an episode pertaining to the Chupacabra, and the write-up for that goes, in 1995, a beast dubbed El Chupacabra, the Spanish for the goat sucker, was first sighted and accused of killing and draining the blood of hundreds of farm animals in Puerto Rico. Eyewitnesses describe it as a 2-legged reptile-like beast with sharp claws and sharper fangs, but another rash of sightings and killings in Texas last year when that show aired, produced eyewitness descriptions as a creature that looked very different. This episode will go on the hunt for the Texas Chupacabra, and for the first time on television, DNA tests will be performed on evidence from both Puerto Rico and Texas sightings in effort to scientifically prove that what this mysterious beast could be. And it actually was a great episode. I remember watching that one. It was one of my favorites, actually. And it had familiar faces in it, like the cryptozoologist Ken Gerhard. We're trying to get him on this show. I would have loved to have him talk about the Chupacabra. And American writer and skeptic Ben Radford was on that show as well. And actually, I'll post a link to that show for everybody in the comments down here really quick. I think I got it in there. Yeah, that episode was actually really good. Part of that show they interviewed, I believe it was part of that show, they interviewed a ranch owner, Phyllis Canyon. Let me grab her picture there. She actually was one of the first to find this mysterious dog breed. And in the picture there, she's holding the head of what she's calling the Chupacabra. That was at her home in Cuero, Texas. And that was Friday, August 31st in 2007. She found the strange-looking animal dead outside her ranch and thinks it is responsible for killing many of her chickens. She had the remains sent out for testing, and the results were the ugly big-eared animal found that summer in Cuero is not the mythical blood-sucking Chupacabra. It's just a plain old coyote. Biologists at the Texas State University announced Thursday that Thursday night on November 1st, 2017, that they had identified the hairless dog-like creature. The DNA sequence is virtually identical match to the DNA from a coyote. So that the biologist Mike Forstner said that in a written statement. So that was, like I said, one of the first reports of the dog. And I don't even like calling that the Chupacabra, because I mean, if you go from what we talked about before, it was something going after their chickens and stuff, which is the only relatable link to the Chupacabra, is like something attacked their smaller livestock. It didn't suck their blood. It was a dog. It ate them like a dog, but I don't know. But we're going to talk about it anyways, because it's what, the Southern American or the Southern U.S. version is. And there's another one here that I want to quick talk about, if I could get it to load. Let me bring this up quick. This was on roadtrippers.com, has a little bit of a write-up on the Chupacabra, where a Texas man claims that he had a run-in. Oh, Jesus, come on. A run-in with the legendary Chupacabra and lived to tell about it. Unlike other people who've claimed the same encounters, this man says that he has cold, hard proof. It had big, long, pointy ears, long tail, and no fur, Scott Black told KPRC News. But on its skin, you could see splotches of gray and splotches of raw skin. It's the third sighting of the Chupacabra, the infamous blood-drinking monster from Mexico. The name translates to goatsucker, as we had mentioned before, in 11 days, inciting concern that the beast might be preying on small animals or worse. Strange sightings of the beast stretch throughout the Southwest and vary from run-of-the-mill encounters to people claiming the vampiric monster gnawed on their cars. I'm going to bring up one of the pictures that Black took, and I'll bring up another one too. So this is what he had took. Black believes that he's found the creature's footprints, impressions that show the beast chasing down a raccoon running for its life. The prints only add fuel to the fire started when Black started snapping images of the dog-like creature from the safety of his home. So there's one of it looks like it's eating out of a bird feeder. And I have another one here. There's this one here that he got of it. And I mean, obviously, you could obviously see that it's just a mangy coyote. But it says Black knows that skeptics will scoff at his images and pass it off as a coyote with mange, like I just did. But he believes he has a better explanation for the Chupacabra's existence: inbreeding between abandoned pets. What do you think about Black's run-ins with the Chupacabra? Has he truly encountered the legendary goatsucker? Let us know what you think, and you could go to the page and check it out. So that was another report of the let me get that out of there, of the Chupacabra. And there was another one on Seeker.com. Do you want to talk about that one?
Nah.
You want to let that go?
Yeah, I don't think we need to
go
too much there.
Beating a dead horse, because honestly, I mean, they had the DNA run on Monster Quest. There were other people that had submitted those kind of carcasses for testing and whatnot. It all comes back either coyote or a hybrid mix between a coyote and a red wolf, or the Mexican wolf. Dog, it's just a mangy dog, bottom line. And when animals get mange and whatnot, they have harder times getting food, and just they have a harder time just living their normal lives. So they start going after easier targets, like they start moving into areas where humans inhabit and whatnot, and they start trying to pick off the easy meals like chickens and rabbits and small dogs, other small pets. So it just makes sense that they would be around like that. So I don't look at that as the Chupacabra. I mean, if you take the reports, like you take this picture that we showed before. That, in relation to a mangy dog, how could you confuse this? Quills down the back, huge black eyes, like that sucker fish face, hops around like a kangaroo. I mean, that's not typical characteristics for a dog. It's not typical movement of a dog. I mean, unless it's injured, but with so many varying reports from all over the place, you know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine that same injured dog would be, and how coincidental would it be that there were multiple mangy injured dogs that would hop around? You know what I mean? Like, just
and the fact that the bite radius that they speak of, these three, in a downward triangle and stuff like that, bite marks throughout the different stories, or single tooth mark, single holes or double holes, or these three hole in a triangular shape.
Yeah.
Dogs don't bite like that.
Right.
A dog single tooth, could bite and catch a tooth. They could get two teeth in at times.
Right.
But usually there's a corresponding two teeth mark somewhere on the opposite side of whatever it bit.
Right.
Or some damage.
Mm-hmm.
But to create a three tooth in a triangular pattern, dogs don't bite that way. Yeah. The dog's lower jaw would actually have to move.
They'd be they'd
correspond. There would be
right. It'd be on one side and on the other. And like you said, these are almost, for lack of better terms, they're almost alien-like patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Where these incision marks or these bite marks would be. So I don't know. And like we had a few fox on the property when I was living on the farm that we had, and I mean, yes, they're weird, they're different, but I mean, and we had mangy bear too. They're different from what you know, but when you like looking at that, like the head that lady was holding, looking at her, I'll bring the picture back up again.
That's not the right picture.
Well, no, I'm just using this one as an example. Oh. This is clearly a canine. Okay, it doesn't look like your normal hair-covered dog. But look at that Mexican breed that's the hairless dog of Mexico. It looks exactly like that. I mean, obviously that was a little more malnourished because, again, with the mange, it affects the body in many ways. And it's not that far-fetched. Yes, it's weird. It's strange. It's different. But that's just a freaking coyote or a dog with no hair on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I said, I've seen bear. I saw a hairless raccoon the one time, and dude, that thing was just weirder than weird. But it is just a regular old animal.
Yeah, I mean, to me, a lot of these the North American and European variant of the Chupacabra are just dogs, coyotes, wolves, hybrid mixtures of any one of those three.
Right.
They don't fit the Chupacabra, and I think sometimes people start tying in cattle mutilations in those areas with the Chupacabra.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I know what coyotes are capable of. Coyotes will get small calves a couple weeks old and stuff like that and draw that. I mean, they'll draw them out away from the herd, and then a pack of coyotes will jump on them and kill them. They'll do it to other dogs. Coyotes will get other dogs to chase and then lead them to the pack, and then the pack pounces on the other dogs. I've seen that firsthand with coyotes and hunting coyote and stuff like that, where they'll try to draw things out away. So I mean, unless you have this 3-hole blood drained no evidence of the blood on the ground around it or in the area, to me, that's not Chupacabra. That's just, typical animal attacks. And if they are attacking smaller livestock, I mean, that's what, animals do. We've had possums, take chickens. So
Yeah.
it's not, it's not Chupacabra. That's just nature.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I'm glad we were able to fit all this into one show because I really didn't want to do a two-parter. And I mean, we do have a lot more information, but it's more or less a regurgitation of the same stuff. It's just the
Yeah.
same creature found at a different spot, doing the same things that an animal does. It eats other animals, So
Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna wrap this up.
Yeah, we're at 10:30. We hit our 2-hour mark. I think we're done.
Okay. Well, as always, I'd like to thank my co-host, Les Cabbage, for doing such a great show. I want to thank all you guys that watched the show tonight for coming along on this trip and being engaged in the show and commenting and offering suggestions. So really appreciate that, guys. And like I said, Les, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, buddy. I totally appreciate you always being here by my side for the show and whatnot. Just in life, man, you're my best friend. So again, as we always say, you could reach us at our website, www.explorersgroup.com, on Twitter at Explorers Group, on Facebook, facebook.com/Explorers Group. We're also on Instagram. It's instagram.com/Explorers Group. We're on iTunes. You can search for Explorers Seekers of the Truth. You can find us on iTunes. Subscribe to our show. Take us with you. We're on YouTube. There's no handle for that. It's just you got to search Explorers Seekers of the Truth on YouTube or get to it through the live shows tab on our website. And like we said before, please share the show with your friends. I mean, if you guys are interested and you know other people that are interested as well, share it around, help spread the word, help us grow our viewership and whatnot. We'd greatly appreciate it. I mean, we more or less do this for funsies for ourselves, but the more we get into it, the more we interact with everybody, we're starting to form some pretty good friendships here with a lot of people. Like Cleo always comes back every week, and other folks come back every week, and we really like that. We really like to interact with you guys, and we hope that we're bringing you a good show. So as always, thank you so much, and just have a good night, guys. So Chad, I'm signing off, buddy. Good night.
Yep. Good night, everybody.
Good night.